Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to TrepNOLA, a panel conversation on the innovation hubs of New Orleans and Black entrepreneurs. Presented to you by Inspire NOLA Charter Schools. My name is Timberland Sams, and I serve as the Director of Community Engagement and Impact here with Inspire, and as well as serving as your moderator for this evening. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the CEO of Inspire NOLA Charter Schools, Jamar McNeely, who will be providing our opening remarks. Mr. McNeely.
Thank you for allowing me to make a few comments on behalf of Inspire NOLA, 8 campuses, over 6,000 students. We'd like to first congratulate these Black entrepreneurs for doing great work in the city of New Orleans. It's a test to how you're impacting our community, how you're impacting our families, and we just want to say thank you. And not only a thank you, you will be hearing from us over the next 2 weeks on how you'll be impacting our schools and the impact that you'll be making into our personal communities and families. But I just definitely wanted to thank you for your commitment to New Orleans, your commitment to our nation, your commitment to the services that you're providing to our families, and just say, job well done. Tim, that's all I wanted to say was just congratulate and salute these wonderful Black entrepreneurs and encourage our New Orleans community to definitely support these individuals.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. McNeely, for that welcome. Our panelists today cover a wide range of entrepreneurial ventures across New Orleans, and they've come here to give us a conversation that we can all enjoy in. The conversation begins with what we know to be a conversation that's happening nationwide. Buying Black has been a conversation that's been going on since the Reconstruction era. Black businesses are beginning to thrive, and Black Wall Streets are popping up all over the country. In spite of adversity and barriers faced, Black entrepreneurs continue to innovate. Here with us today to celebrate, educate, and encourage those of you who are out there thinking about being entrepreneurs are our panelists. Let's start with Ms. Crystal Allen, who is founder and CEO of K. Allen Consulting. We have also with us Brandon Armont, President and CEO of BAM Communications. Edgar Chase IV, Executive Chef of Dickie Chase Restaurant and owner of Chase Concierge. Greg Tiller, founder and CEO of WeDats, and Brandy Charla. Did I pronounce it right? Okay, I'm working on it. Who is owner of Bluecid Floral. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank
Y'all
you
can say something.
for having us.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
for having us.
So before we begin, I want to put some statistics out, just so you guys can know where we're coming from, right? So in 2016, a study by the Center for Global Policy Solutions found that traditional sources of venture capital virtually ignore Black businesses, disproportionately contributed to providing new jobs to the economy since the 2008 financial crisis. New Orleans has grown into a national leader in small business growth, with a per capita rate of startups at 68%, higher than the national average. Small businesses in New Orleans grow at approximately 5% each year, with the national average being roughly 3.6. According to New Orleans Business Alliance, the city's economic development agency, 40% of small businesses in New Orleans are Black owned, but only account for 2% of the total sales receipts. The average business owner by an entrepreneur of color in New Orleans is valued at $35,237 compared to $487,748 for other businesses. Minority-owned businesses are more likely than their white counterparts to fund their business through savings and less likely to receive traditional bank loans. And according to a study by Sterling Bone of the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State, both academic and private sector research reveals that minority small businesses owners are denied credit from traditional bank services at higher rates than white small business owners. So before we even start anything, I want to say congratulations to all of you on this panel because you are defying the odds. At least I hope. Tell me and others, what was your path? How did you get there? What light bulb went off? I know some of you are generational. Some of you just woke up probably one morning and said, I think I could do it. What got you there?
And
You want to say something, Chef Jace?
I don't mind jumping in first. I was
Yes, please do.
the particular order, but you bring up such great points in that article, and I, as many people may not know, I am one of those generational people, right? My family has Dookie Chase Restaurant, so we're celebrating 80 years this year. And that brings a certain opportunity for myself, for my business growth, because what that story was kind of hitting on and touching on is generational wealth, right? When you talk about startups and you're talking about opportunities that started way back when Blacks weren't able to get opportunities, and that wealth just kept accumulating. Of course, now our counterparts will be able to get credit access a little bit easier. Of course, they'll own properties to be able to collateralize and this, that, and the other. So I think, you know, the obstacles that we as African Americans face in starting our businesses and the barriers to entry, whether it's through opportunity that we are not awarded or afforded, whether it's through the building of capacity, whether it's having the capital to scale up, that's a lot harder for us to do. Now, in my situation, I'm very fortunate enough, as I said, for my family to been in business for 80 years. So I had a foundation, a very strong one, to start my business, to start Chase Concessions, and to start into the New Orleans airport and grow that business, and now into 3 different airports. But it always started with somebody like us and everybody else on this panel pushing forward and pushing through and keeping that momentum going and really following their passion and their dreams, whatever the obstacle that they face, you know, and many of us still face these obstacles, right? I still face certain obstacles, even with that foundation that my parents and my grandparents gave me. There's still certain challenges that I face that some of my counterparts may not face. So I'm excited to be on this panel. I'm interested to hear everybody else's story, but I am well aware that my generational foundation has provided me a certain opportunity that other startups, they don't have.
I mean, you brought up generational wealth, which is something that has become like the buzzword that everyone is talking about, especially in this current landscape. But you also talked about barriers that regardless of, you know, the dynamics of whether it's your family and generations have been doing this or not, you're going to face. What are some of the barriers that you guys could bring to the attention that are believed, and we can only assume because none of us have been on the other side, I would think, that you face that you don't think your other partners are experiencing that could have been avoided?
I can share here and kind of loop the last question into this one too. My pathway to entrepreneurship was untraditional in the sense that I'm a trained teacher and was a school principal and really, you know, made a choice to be an entrepreneur as an act of resistance to institutional racism that I faced in the educational system. And so making a conscious decision to say, I want to live into supporting Black and Brown communities, not only here locally, but across the nation and now across the globe on my own terms, in my own way, having my own autonomy and freedom to not have to ask anybody permission to do anything that is in my heart. Having entrepreneurship also as a pathway to economic freedom, and the ability, like Mr. Chase said, to build generational wealth, because in my family, I'm the first person in my immediate family to ever go to college. And so, you know, going to college, even before college, I started working as a teenager. And from day one of working, it was getting a check, to share a check, to support my family, literally as a teenager. And so my first job was at McDonald's. And I've never known not working any of my life. Even in college, I worked 2 jobs. I got my first car in college. I saved up the money to get it myself. And so a lot of my drive and my grind, or my commitment to building a consulting firm, which is the business that I run, is really about my family's ability to come out of generational poverty, and my ability to be that blessing for them, but also pave a path for children I haven't even birthed yet. Right. And thinking about the things that Mr. Chase, spoke about. So, for me, entrepreneurship has been a pathway to freedom. That's financial, but it's also emotional freedom. It's psychological and mental freedom.
Wow.
And it's the ability to say, as my Black authentic self, I am enough. And those barriers of sexism and racism, entrepreneurship is another way I lean into fighting against those systems of oppression.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Crystal. That was a good one. Pathway to freedom. Anyone want to add to that? Like, why did you choose to become an entrepreneur? What got you there? What made you say, like, this is the path that I want to take?
I'll go next.
Hi,
So,
Brandy.
my name is Brandy, of course, and I want to say that I come from a family of generational wealth, and I always say anything given must be maintained. That's sometimes the most challenging part, especially when you're extremely young, making decisions. I'm sorry.
You can proceed. She had to mute.
Proceed, Brandy.
Oh, okay.
I was saying, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, making decisions on your own, especially being a single parent at the time when all of the opportunity came into my lap. My dad already had the building that I'm inside of. It took me 16 years to finally figure out what Brandy wanted to do after finishing college. My son is a graduating high school student right now. So just overcoming all of the obstacles prior to getting to a space to say, okay, now I'm ready to seize the opportunity, do what I need to do to create a better life for myself, now since my kids are becoming older. I will say that generational wealth is very important, setting that foundation. My dad had a building, but he didn't know what to do with it. And then, of course, life happened at a very young age, early 40s, and then I had to take over the ship. So I did complete college and all of the other good stuff. And then I worked in the school system for 8 years. I was very uncomfortable in those spaces because I knew that I had entrepreneurship inside of me. It's just something that sticks with you. You kind of know. I work well with others, but it's like, and I'm good with demands, but some things in your heart just never leave. And when you begin to pursue those things begin to work out. And when you're getting it honestly, it's even more rewarding, because a lot of people say, oh, I have this going, but they never tell how they made their first million. So being able to be that source, I try to keep that door open for others to tell them how I got to where I am, because it literally took me 16 years. And when I did open the flower bar up, it was the right time. It was the thought that never left me. And I was able to say, hey, this space came with a lot of pain. This space came with, so I hear people all the time say, I feel something in here. It's something about the space. Well, it's because it's authentic, and everything inside of it describes what's going on inside of me, in my mind, and what I feel and what I see. So that alone have opened up a door for inspiration. What I would say on the back end, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough with the finances. Of course, you have to become everything in business all at one time. So when you're not connected to different people, and I work in a predominantly white market. So right now I'm one of the only young Black florists, because other people have paved their way. I'm one of the Black florists that's internationally certified, licensed. So it's a lot of things that I had to walk through on my own, because the floral industry is an industry that's very quiet kept. It's like, I'm not telling you anything. Even people say, oh, go to your own. You go to your own. And sometimes it's like, oh, well, it just, everybody's response is different because competition is coming. So what I'll say is this journey has been very interesting. I face racism, but it doesn't bother me because I know who I am and I knew what I was pursuing, and I'm very realistic about life. So
Thank you, Brandy, for giving your feedback. Brandon, you wanted to add to that conversation?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say my experience is similar to Crystal's. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was never my dream. In fact, when I started my business and I had my first biggest client, someone came to me and said, is this a dream come true? And I told them no, because it never was a dream. I was supposed to be, and in fact, anybody that's from New Orleans knows Norman Robinson. I was supposed to be the next Norman Robinson, reporting the news. And so because of that, I was thrown into this unexpectedly, because what some people meant for my detriment was actually for my betterment. But what I didn't realize was that, this wasn't what I wanted to do, but it's what God had intended for me to do.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me going as I go through. And I'm pretty sure we'll talk about some struggles and hurdles, but that's what keeps me going. Because this is my purpose and my calling. From there, I started my communications company, because that's what I was doing, public relations marketing. And then it just continued to expand from there, working with education institutions to clients in all sectors. And now we have a network that produces digital content on our network. So I say that to say that's been my journey. Some of the struggles that we face, especially being a Black company, when we first started, I did not put faces of our team on our website because I did not want to have an all Black team on the website because money is green. And my fear was that some people would not hire us because they would look at us as a Black agency and not as a marketing agency. But then what I began to realize was people that did not look like us, who weren't Black, when they came to us when they wanted us to reach a Black audience. And
so I'm gonna pause you just because I'm getting, you didn't say something. You said something, right?
Yeah.
The idea of imagery changed your perception on how you wanted to be viewed, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a common situation that we, and I'm trying to string it because of what Brandy said about authenticity, right? How do you wrestle with that? Like that's a fight. You want the authenticity, but you also know that, and let's look, I'm clean. Let's be honest, what it is. Money ain't just green, it's who has the money, the power. That's what it is. Buy Black conversation is coming from. It's about where is the power happening. And so how did you get through that wrestle, Brandon? Like that's a toss and turn, like keep you up at night kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, what I began to realize is that, and went back and forth with, even with my team, what, we are who we are. And so, again, some of a lot of times when people who weren't of color came to us to do work, it was because they wanted to reach an audience of color, right? And so we have to realize that we are who we are. We also got a contract once because the other teams did not have diversity, and we had diversity on our team. So It is still a challenge. It's still something that we think about, especially as we continue to grow and expand. But we've just realized that now we can let our work speak for itself. But that's often difficult when you're first starting out and you don't have the work that could speak for itself.
So Greg, you my last one that haven't spoke up, and I'm looking for you to tell you gonna shoot it at me. How did you get there? What made you say, you know what, We Dat Wings is who I am? That's what I'm gonna do.
How you doing? My name is Greg Tillery, owner of We That's New Orleans' own chicken and shrimp, product of Edna Carr High School.
All right.
Actually, Mr. McNeely was actually one of my teachers in high school. I went to school with Chandrell, friends with a few people that's on the call. So first, thank you for having me. But my journey, from Carr, I graduated from Carr, and then I went to Tuskegee, went to HBCU, graduated from the HBCU, and then I wound up working at Frito-Lay as a district sales manager. So, from there, what made me go into the entrepreneur role, take that route was, Frito-Lay at the time was going through a reorganization. And I remember being, in an office in Birmingham, Alabama, with people that had been with the company for about 20 years, people who had built the company up. We was all on the call. It was a company-wide call. And I just remember those same people, just the fear in their eyes that they had when, they was trying to see if they was going to be replaced or going to be forced into retirement or different things like that. So when I saw that, I was just like, man, I can't depend on, this company to put a roof over my head and put food on my table. So, I never forget, being in Alabama at the time, and remember when food trucks, were just coming on TV. This was, like I said, I started back in 2012, 2013. So this when they was doing the food truck races and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, man, I know this is something that if I brought it down to New Orleans, I know I could be successful with it, and I can make it a thing. And so did a bunch of research on it. At the time, my research was, watching YouTube videos, and that was before YouTube what it is. And I was watching hours and hours of YouTube videos and doing the research that I could find out about it. But I didn't go to culinary school. Like I said, I went to Tuskegee University and graduated with a sales and marketing degree. So I knew nothing about cooking, only from what I saw my mom and my grandma, my grandpa cooking, or whatever the case may be. But, I played sports, and, even when I was at Carr, I was an entrepreneur. I used to, tote around my football bag with Capri Suns, Frito-Lay chips, and Snickers and Milky Ways. So everybody, so everybody in the school, that was my first, line of just entrepreneurship, just hustling back in the day. So, and then everybody, started, rocking with me on that. So it just kind of carried, on into, my later on in life. So, I wound up investing everything that I had, into the food truck. And, I done went through anything and everything that you can imagine, from my food truck catching on fire to, my engine going out, to my clutch going out, to my head gasket going out, to the electricity going out, to, being harassed by the city at the time, being harassed by local restaurants, if I wasn't 200 feet away from them because they looked at me as a threat. So, I mean, I went through all kind of stuff, down to, me just, breaking down to my knees, asking God, man, what am I doing? You know what I mean? So, it got to the point where it's in, I just, I'm just one of those people. I'm from New Orleans. I'm resilient, and anything I put my mind to, I'm just not going to let it overcome me. So I just wind up just praying about it and just moving forward. And, was blessed, man. The food truck started really taking off back in the day. I wound up, quitting Frito-Lay and going full time with the food truck. And, at the time when I first started my food truck, I was, working my job at Frito-Lay and still, because what I didn't say is I wound up transferring with Frito-Lay down to New Orleans. And that's, when I, started the food truck business or whatever, but I was working Frito-Lay Monday through Friday, but hopping on my food truck, Wednesday through Sunday. You know what I'm saying? So I was 7 days a week, trying to manage, the corporate job and, still trying to do food truck events, with the food truck until I just decided to just go full time with it. And, once I went full time with it, started posting up at 3801 Tulane, remember it like it was yesterday. And, it just started to be, it got so many hits of people coming to the food truck. It started to get so popular in the city that, we wound up getting, a landmark on Google. And, it was just crazy. So at that point in time, I was like, hey, look, I gotta do something about the food truck. And, wind up going through, the trials and tribulations with opening up a restaurant. And mind you, I never, worked in a restaurant. I never went to culinary school, knew nothing about the restaurant, but just managing, just trying to manage that and, everything that came with it. I just envisioned it as in, just a bigger food truck or just a bigger footprint. And, it just was trials and tribulations with that I had to deal with, that, every day constantly, I'm still learning, about the restaurant industry, like I said, because this is something that I didn't go to school from. But, people say, well, man, you make it look so easy. I mean, I make it look so easy because, everything that I had to learn about the restaurant industry, I had to learn it, from blood, sweat, and tears. You know what I'm saying? It had to, I tell it.
It sounds common.
I tell
really,
everybody.
no, I'm serious. I think that one of the things that all of you have brought to our attention is like, you're not standing on your own ground. Like every one of you have in some way mentioned somebody or something that has influenced you. Whether it's spiritual or natural. I mean, we have heard God has been, or the authenticity, or the spirit, or family. How did you survive? Like, I think that one of the things that most people get confused, and I think, Greg, you talked about it and Brandon touched on it, like that entrepreneurship is that people just walk into, and it's not something that you just walk into. Like you literally be crying saying, why me?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that for me, I tell people all the time, tuition ain't free. The stuff that I learned from Tuskegee, I had to take out a loan to pay for that. And just the lessons that I've learned on the food truck, the lessons that I learned in the restaurant industry, the lessons that I just learned out of life, I just in some form of fashion had to pay for it. But the way I look at it and the way I rationalize everything is one, God is putting me through this for a reason, because the mistakes that I made on that food truck when I got to the restaurant, I didn't necessarily make those mistakes, but I made those mistakes. But when I opened up my second restaurant, I didn't necessarily make those same mistakes because I got better at and I got a clearer understanding of what I was doing. So then when I opened up the third one and the fourth one, and now I pulled over because I'm on the side of the road because we opened up 2 locations in Texas.
Wow, congratulations on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's just blessings from God, man. He to be honest with you, I tell people all the time, and me and Brandon have these conversations all the time too. I tell people, you just got to be consistent in what you're doing. You got to continue to plant those seeds, and planting seeds can be just doing something in good faith for somebody, being nice to somebody, helping somebody out, whether they deserve it or not, you know what I'm saying? So that the blessings that God has for you, you can reap that. And, it hasn't failed me yet. And that's just the way I try to go through life. And, by me doing that, he's put me in places and around people and, it's just some of the wildest dreams. I've got a chance to cook for some of the just crazy people that I never would have, imagined it. Just like my brother who has Dookie Chase's restaurant, and I've ate there before. I got the utmost respect for Miss Chase. So, it's just crazy, just in that business.
We all love me. We miss your grandmother, Edgar.
Yeah, yes, we
Chef
do.
Chase,
Yes, we do.
Her. Yes, we do.
Yeah, yes,
so
we
Crystal,
do. So
Crystal, let me ask Crystal this. So Crystal, you talked about the fact that you transitioned also. You went through some kind of transition from a teacher to now you are working on behalf and consulting with two very recognizable global companies. How do you rationalize that? And like, what is the defiance or like the successes that you take with you always? Like, what are you saying to yourself like daily as an entrepreneur? Okay, I now have Google. What does that mean? You know, how do you rationalize that?
Yeah. So, number one, God is my center too, like at the core, right? Because I know that the negative part of my lived experiences would have given some people a mental breakdown. Like, I'm clear on that, right? And I've had people say, if I had gone through what you went through, I literally don't know that I would even still be in this city, to even still be alive, right? And so like, I don't take for granted the reality that God has kept me physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally through any and everything I've been through in my life. And I think that when entrepreneurship, gets hard or has ever gotten hard, I actually go back to, and Greg mentioned this notion of resilience, right? I go back to that from like way back. I'm like, if I have made it out of this before, whatever this is, and there are a lot of thises, I can get through this, right? That like resilience is in my DNA. And then when I think about us as Black people, we are incredible. Like, we are unstoppable. I believe that to my core, right? Like, I think about the lessons of our ancestors, and I think about, especially, I'm originally from Selma, Alabama. So I'm the only non-native New Orleanian on the panel, but y'all have adopted me anyway, because I've been here for
We
14
love you,
years.
Crystal, baby.
I'm like, my 14 years, I done did my time. But here's the
You
thing.
got 10 you got 10 plus. That was
Yes.
the rule I was told.
I
I
know,
don't
but
know if
here's
it's
the deal.
real or not. But that was the rule I was told. 10
Yeah.
plus, you get it.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I think about what being from Selma means to me, right? As a granddaughter of people who literally marched, folks who literally got hit with bricks in the head for the right to vote, right? Who are still alive today. Like my elders that I go to, they don't, the civil rights stuff that we read about, like they live that, right? So like part of me is like, who am I to quit on something that I say I believe in and something that I say I'm passionate about just because you said something that hurt my feelings, right? Like, who am I to call it quits on something just because you gave me a no? Because in entrepreneurship, you're going to have 30 no's, 50 or 75 no's before you have a yes, right? And so I think that there's something to be said about what is your why that keeps you ever grounded, right? And how bad do you want it, right? And like your desire to want it, whatever it is. And for me, my parents, for instance, my parents aren't homeowners. My parents are in their late 50s, and when they get their first home, it's because I'm gonna buy it for them and they won't have that debt, right? That drives my why. Like my cousins, my brothers, all these people, and even honestly, even naysayers need to be blessed by seeing what's manifested on your life, right? I don't take for granted being a Black woman in spaces, who said it? Brandy talked about the flower industry being predominantly white. In the consulting world, there are a lot of people who consult, a lot of people that consult. They Black, brown, white, everything, right?
That's
but,
right. That's
but
right.
when I started studying like consulting companies that are like international,
That's right.
that are like, $1 million, all of that, they are white, white and white, and they're predominantly white male owned. So to get to a point where I can say in a public space that Google is a client, that Apple is a client, that the $100 million HBCU Innovation Center in Atlanta, I'm designing in terms of the strategic planning process, right? To say that Microsoft is a client, I don't take those things for granted, because I recognize that God opened those doors, but what I also recognize that the obedience to refine your craft is the thing that sets you apart. Like when people are doing whatever they're doing, right? You got to be so laser focused to say, I'm gonna be the best. I almost said a different word, but I'm gonna be the best doggone consultant.
Do the doggone,
right?
yes, because
Like, I'm gonna know
this is
what
a
I'm
PG
supposed to know.
space.
Yeah, you know, but I'm gonna know what I'm supposed to know. I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna study, you know, I'm gonna watch YouTube. Like, I am going to like know my craft in and out, because I want to show up and be well informed. I want to be a subject matter expert with what I'm talking about. And I also want to bring my full authentic self. Something that Brandon said that I want to tap on too, is that the fact that I actually, because of my experiences, some of the experiences with racism, actually informed me to have the opposite disposition out of the gate with entrepreneurship, saying, I'm gonna build a blackety black team. You're going to see the blackness on the team. You're going to see the brown on the team. And to this day, my team is Middle Eastern, is Asian American, is Latino, and is Black. And I made a commitment that up until a certain point of scaling, right, of hitting 650, then 700, and $1 million in revenue, I wanted to send a message that I didn't need the permission of whiteness, and I didn't need validation from white people, and I didn't need all of these things to scale to that level. That Apple, I can sit with them, with my Black and brown team, and we can deliver, right? And that it doesn't take anything away from us because of the composition of our team, because I recognize that representation matters, that somebody's mindset is going to be shifted because of how we show up and how we show up in our authenticity, to Brandy's point. So I just—
Is that important to everyone on this panel? Like, is it important that you are authentic and that authenticity has to do with your ethnicity? That's a question.
Absolutely.
Does your authenticity reflect in your ethnicity? That's basically the question. Does it matter that folks identify or acknowledge you as a Black business? Or do you only want to be seen as just a communication business, or a floral business, or a restaurant, or a consulting business? Or do you want to be seen as a Black business?
Well,
go ahead, Greg.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead, brother.
Brandon, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think, you know, it depends. Well, one, we should not be defined as a Black business.
Why?
Depending on what we do.
Okay.
I want to be defined as a business, right? Not as a Black business. Now, with that being said, if you define me as a Black business, I am okay with that. I don't take offense to that. But we should not be defined as a Black business, because at the end of the day, we can do the same thing that our white counterparts can do. My company can put together a marketing campaign just like a white company. So because of that, you should not only come to me when you want to reach a Black audience, because I can reach an audience, I can reach any audience if I study that demographic and I know what that demographic wants. Okay. However, I don't apologize for being a Black company. So for our network now produces content for Black millennials, because again, we got to the point where we realized we are who we are. And so most of the campaigns that we produce for our clients is for a Black audience. But I will say that no one should be defined by the color of their skin, but by the quality of the work that they're able to put forth.
Anybody else?
We disagree with that, because we've been put to the back for a very long time. And sometimes we need to put a face in a color with everything that's going on, so that they know, because a lot of times, even when I started in my business, they thought that my design aesthetic was from a white woman because I didn't put a face with it. Now I attract all different kinds of races, of people. It is what it is. If you have great quality, great product, and you can be yourself in your space, you invite people to what you want to do. You make them love on what you like, what you're bringing to the table. Your quality and your work will speak for itself. So I understand what you're saying, not to put a color to it, but at this point, this our time. It's time for us to do that. To let people know that our face is all behind these brands. Because white people, what I often hear, white people can do this. White people can do that. That's the only way they're gonna know that is us. If we put
But I agree. We're saying the same thing. As you said, some people think that thought that your floral business was by a white person because of what you did. They should not think that. So what I'm saying is we should not.
We don't have much we're just starting to thrive in businesses and show up on the scene. It was times before, traditionally, I call it, I often tell my kids, I bet not say that on here, but wait, let me retract that. I'll take that piece of it back that I really want to say. But I'll say this. I am very strong about it because we're just getting to a space where we're arriving and we're changing the dynamic, changing the narrative of things. So right now, in this moment in time, this is a good time for us to show our faces. And yeah, they may not want to think we're Black, or we should not be defined by our race. But at the end of the day, that's what's going on right now, because we're just starting to thrive in a certain arena in business. We've had.
So I'm thinking about something that
Can I say something too?
Jeff, yeah, I just want to say, I'm thinking about something that your grandmother used to say. If people wanted fried chicken, when they come to Dookie Chase, they know they're gonna get some fried chicken and they're gonna get some good gumbo. They were not looking for what she looked like. They knew when they came to Dookie Chase, they were gonna get some good gumbo and some good fried chicken. Now, when she walked out, they knew they was with Chef Leah Chase. And so I think you guys are both saying something that is of a jewel. We're at a cross of a W.E.B. Du Bois and a Booker T conversation, like which one fits the best method. But I hear what both of you are saying. I think Crystal wanted to add to this conversation, this component of the conversation, and Chef, I see you wanted to add to this conversation. So you'll be following Crystal. Go ahead, Crystal.
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest methods or really defining qualities of liberation is a human being's ability to define themselves for themselves. And that's a quote also from Audre Lorde. And I think that for far too long, we've allowed white people and whiteness to define itself however it wants to show up. Whether like I am a real estate developer and I'm an educator and I'm this and I'm that with no boundaries and no limits. And my response to that question is really that there is no, your ability to define you for you is the answer. I don't think that there is a perfectly right answer and perfectly wrong answer. I also think it depends on how you define and how you view Blackness. To me, Blackness is king. To me, Blackness is greatness. Like, I think being Black is damn magical. And I said a cuss word on this live, okay? So here's the deal. Because I see Blackness as magical, I'm like, I don't have a day that I wake up that I want to be anything else. And I feel like it's the special sauce, right? And so part of it is that if I am defined and I lean into the fact that I'm a Black-owned company, I love that. If somebody wants to define me as a global education consulting firm because we consult in 5 other countries, I lean into that too, because that's also who I am. If people want to say you are country and you are Southern and you're X, Y, and Z, I'm also that too. I think that the liberation is in the fact that we got to stop boxing in Blackness, because to be Black is not monolithic. Blackness is all of that. I am a woman-owned company. I'm a Black-owned company. I'm a Southern company. I'm a global company. I'm all of that. Right? So like the point is to not see Blackness as a limiting deficit, because it is not.
It's an asset.
It's not. It's an asset, right? It's an asset.
That's right.
And when you see Blackness as an asset, you maneuver differently. I don't apologize for any part of my identity, including being a Christian, right? Being faith-based, all of that. So that's what I wanted to add, that I don't think that there's a deficit to Blackness, and that the true freedom is to name yourself for yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Crystal. That was rich. Chef, you wanted to add to this conversation, this component of the conversation.
I was going to jump in, but I think Crystal really summed up my point. It's we're all inclusive. Of course, I want to showcase my business as being Black and African American business, because you touched on it before about imagery, right? I want kids under us to showcase that look at this African American business, look at this person, they're at the highest level of high. But I don't, if you're going to judge me, I don't want to be put in the bucket of here's the best restaurants, here's the best African American restaurants. No, I want to be at the top of the best restaurants. And oh, by the way, I am an African American restaurant at the top of this list too. So, and I think Crystal hit on that. So I don't have much more to say about it because she said it much better than I would have said it. So that's all I was going to add to it.
Crystal has that effect on all of us, Chef. She does that to us quite often. So don't feel that.
It's both ends. It's
That's
both
why I
ends, not either or. It's both.
That's right. It's both ends.
Either
It's
or.
both ends. That's why I say it's not an either or. It's you can have them both.
Crystal is
You want to
amazing.
say something, Brandon?
No, I say that's why I don't like to be on panels with Crystal, because Crystal is amazing.
She is. She is. Anyone who has had the opportunity to sit amongst Miss Crystal Hardy Allen, you just want to sit at her feet and just soak it all in, because she is amazing. We're getting close to our time like this conversation could go on forever, but I don't want to end it without really touching on the educational piece. I've heard, and I know all of you have talked about your traditional education. I heard HBCUs. I know Chef went to culinary school, and Brandy brought up the fact that she worked through college. Crystal talked about her traditional track into being a teacher. What are the non-traditional ways that you became this entrepreneur? Like you talked about watching the YouTube videos. Where's the mentor? Was there mentorship involved? Was there a network that was built or is being built on your behalf and with you? What else are the non-traditional educational methods that entrepreneurs should be considering and thinking about in navigating this entrepreneurial space? Now, don't all come at me at one time.
Yeah, I'll jump in first because, and I'm not quite sure my story is really non-conventional or traditional, right? I grew up in the business watching this business, but of course, as you want to get to the highest level of whatever you're getting into, you're going to study, you're going to read the books, you're going to watch YouTube, you're going to go out there and visit a lot of restaurants and see what everybody else is doing and see what they're getting right and seeing how their front of the house operates. So it's a constant research, it's a constant gathering of information, it's a constant learning, it's a constant bettering your craft and yourself, right? You always have to learn, where's the market heading? What do you do best? What can we better ourselves at? And what are other people doing around me, right? You think of New Orleans, there's 1,000 restaurants that are great. They serve great food, right? We have a great city and with great cuisine. So how do you market yourself differently, or how will you define yourself differently where people can come in and enjoy what we have at Dooky Chase? Now, I'm fortunate enough that Dooky Chase has such history and tradition dating way back to civil rights that it makes it a little bit easier for me to do that. But the hard part for me is I have to maintain that. I have to maintain that history, that pride, that tradition, that legacy, all while looking and see where the market's going and keep growing this brand. So one thing I would suggest is you got to get, like Crystal said, laser focus. You got to dive in, and you got to dive in deep and study everything you possibly can. Because if not, somebody else, your competitors, show up doing it. They're sure reading those books. They're sure looking at YouTube. They're sure studying cookbooks, this, that, and the other. And they're looking for your customers.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback. Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that because just being in the restaurant industry, like he said, it's 1,000 restaurants, in this great city. And how do you separate yourself from, everybody else? And, that's when you got to get creative. That's when you got to keep your feet on the gas. You know what I'm saying? You can't give up, because it is people that you know, are looking at what you're doing, and they feel now more than ever that they can do it. And a lot of people don't, you know, really know what all goes into it. But what I do is, you know, I encourage it, because, you know, I want to see us do well. I want to see, you know, more entrepreneurship. And then I just wanted to touch, because it kind of was, I wanted to say something about, not going back to the other question that you talked about identifying yourself as a Black-owned restaurant.
You're free to
Because
do that.
because for a very, very long time, I had the only Black-owned restaurant on Canal Street, which I made that be known. But when it came down to me and what I did, I didn't want to have that Black stigma, the stereotype of, oh, I'm going into a Black-owned business, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, it's going to be bad customer service, it's going to be what people like to say. I wanted to try to change that narrative to provide top-notch service, top-notch food, just an environment where it's people don't just say, oh yeah, Weedas is just a Black-owned restaurant. It's owned by a Black man, but it's not just a Black-owned restaurant, but it's somewhere where everybody can come, that where I can diversify. And because like we said, money is green, and that's what, you know, keeps the lights on. So, you know, you just got to keep your feet on the gas, man. You got to keep on going. You got to just be resilient. When you get knocked down, you got to keep on going. And, you know, you got to pay attention to where the market is going and how the economy is changing. Like from the restaurant industry, you see COVID done happen, and I'm gonna be fast. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, once the world opens back up, a lot of people are gonna want to go sit down and do that again. But people from a restaurant industry they're looking at drive-through, fast, quick. Everything has changed. Takeout is the number one thing
So the
now.
innovation has to be there always.
It has to be. You have to change with the times, because if you don't, you're gonna get left behind.
And so you guys are talking a lot about the innovation, and that's one thing that has been accredited to being Black, being innovative.
Agreed.
We've used words like resilience, innovation to describe that of the Black business, like the ability to navigate. And where does that drive come from? Like, how do you find your audience and recognize where it is? Even from a global perspective, Ms. Allen, you know, how do you say, like, this is the new trend? Because I'm gonna tell you, as a person who is a customer, I'm always looking for the most trendiest. I'm not one who stay with the stales. I want to see who's on the up and coming, who's new, what's the new fresh stuff. So how do you find that? How do you get there?
So, you know, I think as a business owner, it's important that, you know, we always are clear about who's our target audience, right? And you really, you know, some people in the business world call that an avatar or your target customer or client, but you really have to understand that it is your business to study them as if they are a class in and of themselves. You have to understand, who are they? Are they between 25 to 35? Is it tend to be women, Black and Latino folks who are from this and that? Do they tend to shop with me seasonally? Like, you got to really understand their pain points, their motivations, their challenges, what their needs are. And your ability to do that even translates into how you market, right? Like, anytime I make a social media post, like, I write to a person, and I'm very clear about the people that follow my page, and really using discernment to say, what is it that's on their heart right now that I need to speak to? And every single time, like, it will be 400 or 500 likes and saves, because people are like, yes, this is it. And so part of it is your ability to say, how am I in touch? Like, how am I constantly understanding where people are, right? And I have found, even as a Black woman navigating international spaces, right? So anytime I'm leading a training for people in India, whether it's in Nigeria, South Africa, South Korea, or in Canada, my thing is that I have to understand that if I'm in an education space, we're going through a whole global pandemic. And you don't have to be Black to understand that there's a lot of anxiety happening right now. There's a lot of depression happening right now. So you know how I don't care who I am, I'm opening that training saying, how are y'all doing? Like before we even get into the content, we're doing a head and a heart check, and I call it that, right? Like, what do we need in this space, right? And also this idea of saying, what do you want for your children right now? And the ability to say that I can use emotional intelligence to discern a room where I'm the only Black person to 78 actual Indian, like not Indian Americans, Indians, right? Is like huge, because there's something about human connection that happens in that moment that I'm able to transcend just me and my phenotype, right? So all that said, I think you got to study and be a student of those that you serve. When people are trying to eat healthier, how am I providing a healthy option along with my main staple, right? When people went virtual, I'm like, oh, I got to do an ebook. Oh, I got to go virtual in Zoom.
So the ability to transition at any
Yes.
given point,
Yes.
pivoting is very important.
Don't leave your DNA, because what I'm not doing is changing what we give people. You know what I'm changing? The format in which we deliver, right? That same authenticity shows up, whether you on a webinar, verbal, in person or whatever. You got to figure out, how do I translate the DNA of who we are as a brand, no matter what the times and the circumstances are.
Y'all, we got 1 minute. So I'm gonna just let y'all close it out in this 1 minute. Give me the best advice you've ever received as going into this entrepreneurial space. What was the one thing that is like solid gold? You hold on to it till this day.
I'll say do not conform and never change your ingredients. Stick to your ingredients.
Stick to your ingredients. Do not conform.
I'm gonna jump in. It's something my grandmother's father told her. It's 3 words. It's work hard, pray, and do for others. And everything else is gonna follow.
Work hard, pray, and do for others.
I'll jump in and just say, you gotta just stay consistent, stay prayed up. You just gotta keep your faith through all of this.
Stay consistent. Stay prayed up. Just stay. Be steadfast. Got it.
Yeah, I would just echo everything everyone else just said. Be consistent, be resilient. But for me, the most important thing is to stay prayed up, so that you can let God order your steps, because it's going to get crazy and it's not easy. First of all, let me say too, I know we have 1 minute. This is a bad panel that y'all that
we bad people. You had TrepNOLA, baby. We some bad folks.
Look, I mean,
you better recognize if you didn't know.
Traveling around the world, cooking for people. Crystal Allen, who's working with Amazon and Google, and Edgar Chase, who's holding down the fort from what his grandparents built and expanding. And then you got Brandy, who has the only Black-owned floor shop in the Ninth Ward. You got a bad panel here. So, but I will say this. It did not happen for anybody overnight. So anybody that's watching that wants to be an entrepreneur, you're seeing this, but you go from having one boss to having multiple bosses. That's and right. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to be crazy. And if you're not crazy, then don't do it. Because
show me your crazy ideas.
You got to go through. So that's what I would say. That's my advice that I'm giving. You got to be crazy enough to do this, because it's tough work.
Got it. Thank you, Brandon.
My closing advice would be twofold. The first one is a quote from my pastor, and he says to never lean into trying to be a public success and yet are a private failure. And I think as an entrepreneur, we have to develop a holistic definition of success. That success as a Black entrepreneur in particular includes your mental wellness, your physical wellness, your emotional and spiritual health, your financial health, your family health, all of that. I am working to make sure that I am a successful business owner, but I also have a successful marriage. That I also, when I don't have kids yet, but when my husband and I start having children, I want them to know my mom is also there, right? Like she was there for us, and she had this company, and she thought she was the stuff, right? Like the point is that it is holistically well-rounded, right?
That's right.
It's not perfect, but that other areas of your life are just as vibrant as your business, right? And the second thing that I would say is a quote from Maya Angelou, in which she says, people may forget what you say, people may forget what you do, but people will never, ever forget the way you make them feel. As a business owner, I don't care if a client is spending $5 with you or $500K with you. Treat them with the utmost dignity and respect and bring your A game as if they were $1 million customer. That's the advice that I would leave.
This is so amazing. And I don't know if I could ever thank you guys enough. I echo what Brand said. This is an A game panel. You know, one of the things that I learned, and I will say from my own experience in business, is that engagement is not a spectator sport. And I have seen each and every one of you at your A games, and you have not been spectators on the sidelines waiting and watching for things to happen. You participated, and you continue to participate in your communities, which is what I love. That's what I love more than anything. You talk about your business, but you really care about the communities that you serve. So from my heart and soul and Inspire NOLA family, we really want to thank you for joining us on tonight. Those of you who are watching, thank you for joining us tonight. We really hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, send us an email. Let us know you enjoyed it. If you missed even a snippet of it, you can see the whole thing all over again and hear my loud mouth on our YouTube channel just by visiting Inspire NOLA Charter Schools YouTube. We utterly thank you, and stay tuned because this is our first panel discussion, but I promise you it won't be our last. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. Stay tuned, stay strong, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.